What's up, y'all? It's your host, Sid, and welcome back to another episode of Cooler Talk. I'm so excited that you're joining me this season and so many dope women as we transparently inspire and empower about conversations of womanhood, career, relationships, and all of life's experiences. Joining me at the Cooler today is my good friend Amber. And the crazy thing is, y'all will probably absolutely never guess how we met unless you already know us. But when we were younger, middle school and high school, Amber and I actually met at cancer camp. Yes, at cancer camp, which is actually called Camp Sunshine, in North Georgia. And we would go and get to spend a week in the summer with kids who had been or were currently going through cancer, or cancer survivors, and as well as some of the counselors as well. So ever since then, we have stayed connected through the socials. We become wives and mamas, and Amber is a military wife based in Florida. And she's a founder of Lotus Bloom Lactation, where she's a certified breastfeeding specialist. So
we said we, met years ago. But I am a wife, a military wife. I am a mom of 2 kids, and I am also a former educator. I taught for 8 years in elementary school in Georgia, and I am now a certified breastfeeding specialist, helping moms who want to breastfeed, and and a stay-at-home mom, which is my biggest job right now. So,
and that part, I think growing up, when we grew up, you heard the term stay-at-home mom, and nobody associated that with work. You know what I'm saying? That is a whole job. Every day, even on the weekend sometimes, or if it's a stretch where our nanny may be gone or something, I'm like, how does Tisha do this every single day? From the moment they wake up to the moment they ready to go to bed. How? It's very exhausting. So I'm gonna touch back on our past, how we met, meeting at Camp Sunshine, by way of the fact that unfortunately we both had childhood cancer. So tell us a little bit about, your testimony. I think a lot of listeners know me, know my story, and this is the first time that I had a fellow cancer survivor, I think, on Cooler Talk. But what's your testimony, and how is, just having cancer as a kid kind of completely shifted your outlook, and experiences in life?
So I was actually diagnosed 3 days before my 6th birthday. So I was in kindergarten. And I kept telling my mom and my parents, I kept saying my stomach feels crooked. And I was saying that for a couple weeks. And eventually they looked at me and felt oh, it does feel kind of, I was saying crooked. Of course, I'm a 5-year-old, but there was a lump there. And they just, one random Sunday, they were oh, let's just take you to the emergency room, see, get you checked out. I remember this day it was, I clearly, so
we all do.
Clear. We went to church.
Yep.
We went to Olive Garden. And near Olive Garden was at the time, Scottish Rite, urgent care, emergency room for kids. And they took me there, and I don't remember really a whole much what happened while we were there. All I remember is them being y'all need to go straight to the hospital. Don't go home. Don't go nowhere else. Go straight to Scottish Rite. And that day I was diagnosed with stage 3 Wilms tumor, which I had pretty much a tumor the size of a football in my left kidney. A 5-year-old. Okay. So 3 days later, on my 6th birthday, I had that tumor removed along with my kidney. Of course, I had chemo, I had radiation, all of that throughout that summer. That was 97, in the late 1900s, as the kids say now.
Throw them away. No. Not the late 1900s.
Right. So, and then I went into remission actually that October. So my whole stint of diagnosis, surgery, chemo, radiation, all of that was really only about 6 months.
Wow.
Of course, there were follow-ups for forever after that, even to this day, But yeah, so I went into remission that October, and it has definitely been something that has always been at the forefront of my life. Even being in remission, it's just always something. And, maybe camp has something to do with that, because I started camp not that year that I was diagnosed, but the following year. So I started camp.
Wow, you were going for a long time.
Yeah, so I was there from age 7 to 18. So that could be a reason why it was just such in the forefront of my mind, because I mean, it's in my face. You know what I mean?
Like, part of your identity, like as a kid at that point.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, and meeting different people, seeing people, make it through, seeing people not make it through, like at such a young age, like it definitely gave me my outlook on life, like from a young age, like, whoa, you made it through this. And there are people who did not,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, not only are you blessed to survive, but you're continuing to survive, you're thriving, you're making it through every other milestone of life, and you should just be grateful for it, because it didn't have to be this way.
Girl, all of that, like, I will never forget after my first week at Camp Sunshine. So I was diagnosed when I was 11, my first year at Camp Sunshine. I don't even think it was the summer when I turned 12, just because my doctors they were like, nah, she's not like ready. Her white blood count's not ready. So I don't think I went until I was 13, but I know I only had like 4 years, because my last year, which would have been like my senior year, was when like Savannah, or even maybe the whole state of Georgia, I don't know, but like Savannah specifically, school system went to like us going to school till June. So I missed camp that year.
I didn't know that.
Yes, crazy. But I remember after my first week going back home and telling my parents, I wish I had cancer longer so that I could have been going to camp longer. Because I remember it was like kids like you and Angie and Rod who had been going like since y'all were like y'all had like 10 years of bracelets. Everybody, we had little special camp bracelets, and it was fire, and I still have mine. But like y'all had y'all's bracelets were like all up y'all's arm, and I was like, Mama, I wish I had it longer so I could have been going to camp. And like, I think now being a mom, just thinking like how that could have sounded to her, like she had to be happy, but also just like, ma'am, absolutely not. And even like you said with your journey, at that age, like, people thought like when I was diagnosed at 11, it's just like, whoa, like you're such a kid. 5 and 6, bro, in 6 months feels like an eternity at that point, even with 6 months. And my journey was 9 months. And like you said, those years we go back to camp and we'd be like, where's so-and-so, or where's so-and-so? And they'd be like, they won't be at camp this year, and then we later found out it's because they passed or they relapsed. Like, I never even thought about it in that way until you said it. Like, for us to have to process friends not being at camp this year, because we know why, because we've also been through it. We've seen kids on our like hospital wards that either their parents didn't show up every day, they just kind of dropped them off, or they weren't in the room, when you expected them to be in the room. And I never really realized like how much we actually internalized just by going to that camp. And also the fact that, I mean, to this day, people who have been in your community, church, family, you still kind of always that cancer kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, I swear to you, I'll go back home, go to church with either grandma, and they'd be like, this is my granddaughter who had cancer. This is my, and it's just like, dang, like I'm all like mom and wife now. Like, can I be something else?
Yes.
No, man, it's a lot of that experience that just gets bottled up all into this one thing. But I feel like it's just one of those things that later on we process it differently, as an adult. So as a mom of 2 and a cancer survivor, I'm sure you often think, like I am, like Braylon ain't even 2 and I'm already probably losing sleep, like about her health, her safety. What is she eating? Like, is this going to cause inflammation in her body? Like thinking of all the things. So I feel like when we get to those spaces, sometimes that lends to like overprotectiveness, or, that whole idea of let kids be kids is kind of harder for us. So what are maybe some ways, if you do feel like that, every now and then, what are some ways that you feel like you have to just train your brain, you know, and have a different approach and just like, look, they're going to be good. Like, you have 2 kids. So this is like even advice from me. Like, what are some ways that you just like, look, Amber, let them kids be kids.
That's funny you asked that because this was Mackenzie's kindergarten year. So for me,
Ooh.
I was, and it really didn't hit me until like a few days into kindergarten. I was like, oh man, this is the same year that I experienced what I experienced. So it was like, I just want her to be a kid. I just want her to have fun. I mean, of course, I want her to learn. I want her to grow as a person, but I just want her to not have to think about any of the grown-up things that I had to. You know, I want to keep her safe. I want to keep her protected, but I want her to just live life free of not knowing any of that stuff, you know? And I really had to like, I feel like I may have actually held my breath all school year.
Yeah.
At the end of it, I had that thought again, like, okay, she made it through. Like, she made it through kindergarten and she wasn't sick, you know, outside of regular school stuff. She wasn't, you know, nothing major happened. She was okay, you know? So I think that kind of, now looking back on it, like I really had to, it was like a almost, you know, every now and then, like telling myself like, she's okay. Like, nothing has happened. She's fine. You know, we go to doctor's appointments and they're like, oh, everything's normal. You know, she's not complaining of anything. And I just have to just keep telling myself that, like, we placed her in a school that the people there, we, you know, have learned and grown to trust, you know, and we just have to allow her to be a kid because like I know what it feels like to be that kindergartner and, you know, having just a normal school year and then
you're being stripped away. Yep.
The rest of the year is spent sick, you know, like, so just having to remind myself, you know, and to just really believe and have faith like that they're okay, you know. I'm taking care of them. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to take care of them. Me and their father are taking care of them. And like nothing, you know, we can't control everything. That's something else, you know. We cannot control everything, but the things that we can control or the things that we can make sure that, you know, that we're giving them the best of, we do that, you know, and that's all we can do.
Yeah. That alone makes me just think about when we will get to those points in our lives where we're like telling like Mackenzie and Ozzy and Braylon like about like our story, you know, like just even like how they will, you know, process it and understand it. Because I think while we were the cancer kids in the room, that, like you said, I vividly remember the day I went to the hospital one time and I never left. Like I was just there. Like they're going to have kids like that in their class.
Right.
You know, they're going to see kids like that in the things that they do. And so being like on the other side of the coin, like even just raising them, you know, to be great kids, like, hey, you might, if, you know, so-and-so is sick and maybe they lose all their hair, like, you know, we don't bully, we don't, you know, like it's just so much that I feel like gets bottled up into it that you start to think about. And it's like you want to teach them all the things and you want to tell them all the things, but also shield them from so much. So I appreciate that. Like, control what you can control. Everything else, like, it's just life, and you just got to keep powering through it.
Yeah, you'll lose sleep, like
you will
about everything,
and have,
and have like you will literally be over here tired, and they're fine. Like they're just living their happy little lives.
Exactly. So let's talk about the tatas. Let's talk about Amber, the certified breastfeeding specialist. So how did you get on that path? Was it, you know, potentially always something like in mind, or it just definitely happened after motherhood?
So when I was pregnant with Mackenzie, I kind of just, there was nothing that really triggered it. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna breastfeed. Like it wasn't just, I don't really necessarily remember seeing other people do it. I don't think at that point I even talked with my mother to ask her what her experience was. In my mind, I was just like, one, this seems to be the cheaper route.
Yes. Okay.
I don't know. I just, you know, was like, you know, this is something I can do. And I took like an online self-paced breastfeeding class. Like, it wasn't even with like a live teacher. I read up on stuff that maybe I didn't understand, but I did some really basic things to just have knowledge of what I was trying to do. That's really it. I just wanted to be knowledgeable. I didn't want to go in there with nothing. So when I end up having, an emergency C-section with Mackenzie, it was kind of like, okay, what is this going to look like now? And everything still ended up like I was still able to breastfeed. I was still able to, once we got to the room, we were still able to have our time. So I was like, okay, this is kind of going smooth. And it did. I had a fairly easy breastfeeding journey, to the point where I've never actually myself seen a breastfeeding professional outside of the hospital, like outside of the ones that regularly come to the room. Mm-hmm. I've never had to call on one. I was never having really any issues that that I needed to call one. So after nursing Mackenzie for a very long time, she was 3.5 almost. A lot of my friends ended up having babies after me. And so they saw that, I had nursed her, and they would come asking me questions. And I was like, I'm only giving you information just off my experience.
Will work for me. Yeah.
So I would, give them what I knew. And I didn't even know anything about the lactation world. I didn't know anything. I really didn't even know how to start, what to do. I was just like giving them my experience and what I had done. And a lot of them were actually like having pretty good experiences.
Exactly, yeah.
So, when I realized that, I was like, okay, I need to like almost like confirm the information that I already know.
I need to do this.
Right. Is this really, am I giving you right? I hope I am. And if I'm not, look, I already told y'all I'm not a professional. Okay. So I kind of just stumbled upon it. I kind of just did some research. I found a group that was on Facebook. And it's for Black women who were trying to be lactation professionals. And they pretty much, they would post in there and tell you like different courses you could take and things like that. And I found a course. I actually got the military, like this like program for military spouses. I got them to pay for it. And I was able to take the course, and I took the test, and that's how it became, and since then, like I've had friends, anytime they have questions, they're, messaging me, asking me, referring me to people. And it's something that I love. It's something that, I just like being able to help those that, want to. I always say like breastfeeding something that if you want to do it, then, that's your decision, however you want to do it. It looks totally different for everybody. And that's where I am with the breastfeeding. I
love that. So now do you mostly like coach moms like virtually? Do you like go kind of like to their actual house? Like how is it like kind of worked since you've become like made it an official thing?
So now it's pretty much me doing a lot of like virtual education. I haven't really, because I got the certification when I was in New Orleans. And then I had Ozzy. So that kind of like put a hold on everything. And then we moved. So it's been an up and down type of situation. So mostly it's been a lot of like just breastfeeding education, a lot of moms who are pregnant and just wanting to have, tools to help them not go into it blind once baby gets here. I would hope, to start seeing more moms in person, only because I'm trying to work towards becoming an IBCLC, which is pretty much being board certified.
Oh, wow.
That's like my ultimate goal, so that I can really help moms, especially, teaching the education part is easy for me. I'm a teacher at heart. I taught for 8 years, so that's easy. I can give you the information, but it becomes really intricate when you're talking about moms who are having different type of issues with breastfeeding. It's not just coming easy for them and, trying to troubleshoot and figure out ways to help them have the best journey that, they can have. So that is my goal, to see more moms in person.
That would be so awesome. Yeah, it's intricate and it's personal, because you're like, again, I think as a lactation consultant and a breastfeeding specialist, like, people are immediately just thinking about the boobs and the milk. But it's so much that is going on with that mom and with that baby just being out in the world for the first time, that you also have to balance in the process. Like a lot of times it's not just like, oh, what are you eating? Or what did you like? What's your sleep like? Like, how do you feel? Do you feel comfortable? Like, it's so much that goes into that process. And I know, like, I would preferably prefer like being able to work with a Black woman that I know, with my breastfeeding like struggles or challenges, because again, it's a very personal journey.
It is.
And like for me, while I was pregnant, before we had Bray, I was always like, I'm not doing that. Nope. I don't see it. I don't feel it. It's just not my ministry. I'm not doing it. So I told Antonio, I was like, but our hospital, they offered, all the little like prenatal courses or whatever, and they had a breastfeed on. So I was like, well, let's go to this course and I'll see how I feel, like if I would just even give it a try, when she's here. So we go to the course, and it actually didn't like weird me out as I had thought, in my head, all the pictures and the idea of it. Like I wasn't as weirded out anymore. I think I fell in love more with the connection and the, like you said, that price point, because formula was super expensive. But like I fell in love with the idea of the connection to the baby. Yeah. And I was like, all right, when she get here, I'll try. So Braylon got here. And first of all, after I also had a C-section, went in, like wanted to have her natural. Homegirl did not want to budge, like didn't want to budge, but I wound up having a C-section as well. And her kind of like first, like touching and feeling like was actually with Antonio, because I got so sick like right after I passed her. Like I got so sick. I hadn't vomited. Like my pregnancy was so easy. I was never sick. I didn't vomit, none of that. But after I had her, all the things just came. And so I remember being in the hospital, and the consultants would come in and just make sure that you're, latching properly and doing all the things. And I just kept feeling like, immediately mother instincts tap in. And I just kept feeling like she's not getting enough milk. Like she's not getting enough. Like it's no way. I feel like it's nothing coming out. And me and her wound up having like latching struggles. And I went to like the lactation consultant that like the insurance approved or whatever. Yeah. And it was just not like it helped. I wound up breastfeeding her for 3 months, and I wound up having to use like the little nipple shield or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that is what worked well with her. Yeah. Versus just like naturally latching to my nipple. And and the whole experience with the lactation consultant, like she told us, she was like, oh, I think her tongue, is too connected to whatever this little thing is. So y'all need to take her to like the dentist tomorrow and get it clipped. Tomorrow. Go get it clipped. Like don't check with your pediatrician. So of course that's what we checked with our pediatrician. She was like, she's fine. Like she don't need to get it clipped. So it was just like I feel like you didn't really help me, but she did put me onto that little nipple shield, and then we had like success for 3 months. But overall, I preferred pumping more than I did latching. Right. And so that kind of got us through. But like you said, man, that is just like being a stay-at-home mom, like also being a certified breastfeeding. It's so much that just goes into the person you're dealing with, and I think it's just a lot of roles out there that, people, you show up, you do the work kind of thing. And these are just not those jobs. No. Like it's so personal.
It's very personal. Everyone's journey is different. And a lot of people want it to be like a cookie cutter way, or you have to do this one way. And there's so many different ways. Like one thing that I talk to moms about, like during the breastfeeding education talks that we have, is I try to ask them, like, what do you want this to look like? Yeah. I'm giving you all the tools and all the different ways you can do this. It's now let me help you come up with how you want this to look. Because like you say, there are moms who or not stay at home moms who can't just pump and exclusively, nurse all the time. There are moms who have jobs who don't even have places for them to pump. It is it can be so intricate, and it is very personal because, moms are already going through enough. Like, postpartum is already crazy.
A hot mess.
A hot mess. Like, I even have to remind myself, like, I'm not even at that 2-year mark with Ozzy yet.
Correct.
Like, although this is my second child, it's like,
it don't matter. It's a new experience every time.
It's a new experience every time. And I have to remind myself that. I have to remind moms that I work with, like, it's okay, like, to take a breather. Like, but there are, like you said, there are people who come in and just want to, you're just a number, or, a bunch of moms that they see, and they're not into getting to know the person or, what their real whole situation looks like, not just the breastfeeding part.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm like, not you over here got me excited to breastfeed, and I don't even got no baby to feed. Like, it's just because your company, I know, like, just the mission of it is just so much more wholesome than the experience I had when I needed to go to a lactation consultant. And I just know the next time around, God willing, like, I would do it completely different. Like, I would rather consult with you than, like, let's just go to some random hospital and I'm like, oh yeah, go see this person, because I feel like it didn't help us as much. So you're talking about being at home with the kiddos, when they're not in school, balancing the moves, being a military wife, having your own company, being a certified breastfeeding specialist, wanting to become board certified. Like, just saying that is a mouthful, right? So is it a lot different, like, the lifestyle of, having to juggle the military side of it? Is it a lot different than what you thought you signed up for? Just like, how do you balance all of that?
I don't know what I signed up for. Okay.
He was like, I love Jonathan. And then after that, I was just like, wait.
I don't know what. So, okay, let me say this. When we got married in 2020, pandemic bride. Military had not yet happened yet.
Okay.
So it was already in the works, but it hadn't happened. So I have been used to being in Atlanta, everybody being home, having my people, all of that. It has been something that I am still learning because although I went away to school, so I lived in Virginia for 4 years. But I never pictured it like this. And especially because it's so different, no matter, like, depending on where we are. Like, the military,
I got you.
With my husband's job, like, when we were in New Orleans, he was what they call shore duty. So he comes home every day, it's like having a 9 to 5. There may be times where he has to go to trainings for, maybe a week or a few days, things like that, which is cool. But for most of the time that he would be home. This new station in Florida, he is on a ship. Because he's a chaplain in the Navy, and there have been times, he just got back last Friday, and he was gone for 3 weeks. Now, normally, a week, I'm pretty good with.
Like, okay, I can see the Sunday that's after this. Yeah, I can.
Especially when Mackenzie's in school, and it's just me and Ozzy at home during the day, which is the norm. And then, Mackenzie has extracurriculars. And then by the time we get home, it's time for just dinner, bed, easy.
Exactly.
3 weeks with both kids home.
In the summer.
And it's already too hot to really go outside if we're not at the beach or the pool. I made it through, but I thought at some point I may have lost.
Always do.
Yes, because it is hard. Like, it is not, and no matter whether he's here or not, I am the go-to person. If something happens at Mackenzie's school or she needs something, I'm the one, have to be on, when he's not here, I'm the one that has to be on 24/7. You know, thankfully, Ozzy just got to a point where he will sleep through, you know, the night in his own crib, in his room, you know, so that I can at least have time to myself at some point. But it is really something that I am still learning. It is not something that I really knew a whole lot about, or how much it would
impact y'all's lifestyle.
Yes, and how much it would ask of me, you know, to sacrifice, because there are so many things, you know, I would be a lot further along, you know, with some of my things, you know, if it wasn't for this. But, you know, I'm grateful for it because I do have the ability, the flexibility when, you know, there's some event going on at Mackenzie School, I can be there, you know. If it's something that she needs, I can go and get. But it has definitely been, it has been a learning process. It is something that I'm still learning how to juggle with the ups and downs of, you know, him being in and out. It is hard though. It is definitely, it's hard. But it's an experience. I'm learning. The hardest thing is trying to open myself up to support from people I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel that. I mean, especially like having your kids, you know, most of the time with you under your care. Like, and then on top of that, the biggest factor is that y'all are moving and hopping around every year, every 2 years. So it's like, not only do I not know you, I don't even know this place. So
Right.
I totally feel that.
And so it's like trying to learn to trust people and be like, okay, you know what? Like, yes, I need a break, but no, I don't trust you with my kids. Like, so how do I ever have a break? You know, but it is something that I am starting to like peel back to. Okay, you know what? Like, you're going to lose your mind if you don't, you know,
keep trying.
Keep trying, you know, and, you know, it may not be right in this moment, but at some point you're going to have to, the same way, you know, I have to think about it the same way I released Mackenzie to go off to school, because I could clearly keep her home and homeschool, but who wants to do that, you know? I mean, easily could do it, you know, that was my first career, you know, but the same way I release her to go to school, I'm going to have to start to open up to people so that, you know, there can be times where, you know, they have a sitter or a nanny or things like that, so that I can have those moments for Amber, because I'm learning, you know, if I am not well, if I am not okay, if my cup is empty, I can't pour out. And, you know, that cup runs empty very quickly.
Exactly. And if yours empty and you running on E, then you're not the best mom, you know, for them. You know, like in certain situations, like we already on E, and now you're touched out and you need me.
Yes.
And it's just like, you know, and I think one of the things though that sticks with me that you said was, it's hard. You know, and I think a lot of times we're so much on like autopilot, routine. Oh, I just got to get this done, this done, this done. Like, this is just life. But stopping sometimes and just saying like, this is hard. Like, this is actually hard, and just like taking that in. Like, even though you're going to power through, you're going to get it done, you're going to make it through the hard days. It's just like, it's okay to say that shit out loud sometimes and just like, this hard. You know, today was pretty hard. And I empathize so much because this November will be 9 years that Antonio has been on the fire department. And obviously in September it'll be 2 years, you know, since we've had Braylon. So just 2 years in, where she's starting to get to that point where she realizes his absence. Like, she knows when he's gone, it's like that, like in our room, she look for him like in our bed. Or like when he comes home, like she rushes to the door. And so we were talking about that recently, where now she's starting to like get those cues of like his absence. And, you know, just like you said, where, hey, like, I love my man, we got married, the military had happened, but then when it did, I didn't really know like how much it's gonna take. Like, it's exactly that, you know, even with me having, you know, daily help with our nanny, daily help, and my sister with Bray's auntie, like, it is still so much that you have to schedule, plan, organize, think about, lead, run the ship while they're going. you know, and he's only going for 24 to 48 hours at max. But that 24 to 48 hours, sometimes even in the same city, is, you know, feels like longer depending on what's happening. And this is not okay, you went for a stint for a couple of weeks, now I see you every day. Like this has been our life for almost 10 years. You know, I see you 3 to 4 days a week, sometimes 2 days a week, you know. And on top of that, like, Dallas is fire and rescue, so, you know, he's a paramedic, he's a firefighter, they do all the things, they ride the ambulances, they do everything. So just on top of when Jonathan comes home and when Tone comes home, like, now you're balancing, like, okay, well, how was work, what did you see, like, are you, you know, like, it's kind of like it never ends. Even when they are home, now you're taking them, like, up under the bosom too, and up under the wing too, just like, dang, okay, like, now what do you need?
Right.
So I think it's just important, like you said, sometimes you just gotta be like, you know, this is hard, like, and pour that wine and get that rest and try another day, because it's just like, man. So I want to switch a bit into our pour session break, and ask you 3 random questions. The time for the audience to get to know you and me a little bit more. So my first question is, are you more coffee or tea?
Definitely.
Same. I was always that weird kid that I was just like, I don't like tea. Like, why are y'all serving this?
I like tea, but if you give me an option, I'm probably going to choose coffee.
If I'm drinking tea, I'm sick. Like, I'll drink like the hot tea because I'm sick. But like banquets, galas, the little cold, like sweet
water
tea,
down, no sugar.
Nah, I'm messing with it. Where's the favorite place you've ever lived?
Oh, I would have to say New Orleans. Very love. Me and my husband were just talking about that. Like, there is no other place. Like, we even were like, maybe we do need to purchase.
Like, how do we get back there?
We need to purchase a home there. Maybe that could be like a little retirement thing, like, to at least have a home that we could go and just stay for as long as we want when we were ready to visit, because everything, the food.
That alone, I'm like, that alone, it's like a period at the end of it.
We start listing everything that we ate while we were there. Like, it is like, and then people a lot of times, you know, they think like the Cajun food, of course, you know, po' boys and gumbo and crawfish, but like we ate everything. We had Haitian food. We ate great Mexican food. Great Jamaican food. Like, it's much more of a melting pot than people assume. And when you're living there, you have the chance to like experience all of that. So yeah, it would definitely be New Orleans.
Yeah, after living here in Texas and having so many friends from like born and raised from the Houston area, and just hearing like, for them growing up, like, New Orleans was like, when we were in Savannah, kind of like going to Atlanta or Jacksonville or Charleston. Like, New Orleans was there just like next town over, and vice versa. And the food, again, alone, like that little mix of like Louisiana and Texas right there. Like, chef's kiss. Last one. If you had a mommy self-care day, what are your 3 go-to ways to spend it?
Definitely a massage. That's normally part of my go-to. Somewhere quiet, somewhere where there are no kids.
Where you can hear yourself think.
Where you can hear yourself think, breathe, actually process maybe some of your feelings. Like,
absolutely.
I'm trying to think. It would probably, if it was a day, if I could just go to, like, if there was a resort close enough that could, on the beach somewhere, that could encompass all of that. Like, we're
together on this day because we got the same thing.
That would be it. I needed somewhere where I don't have to think about what I'm going to eat because it's already there.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't have to think about what I'm going to drink because it's already there. Because I get so sick of trying to figure out what I have to cook. So something where it's all laid out, and I can just think about what I want to think about.
That part. Apparently we're at the same place on a self-care day because all those things are check boxes in my brain. Somewhere a nap is in that situation
Oh,
somewhere.
yes.
A good old nap. Like I'm talking about hours. Like don't need no
Mhm.
alarm clock. I just wake up, feel refreshed. That massage is for sure. I didn't even think about it till you said it, but somewhere where I don't have to figure out the food part. That part. So yeah, I'm just saying we're at an all inclusive resort and we're both
Yeah.
there because that's my type of self care day too. I don't need to get my nails done. I don't need to go
Oh,
shopping. I don't need to do much of nothing. Um, but yeah, that's definitely my self care day. So switching back into the interview, as a young girl, who were Amber's biggest influences, or who like had a big impact on your life?
mm. So I grew up, I went to like the same church all my family went to, and there are like a group of women there who are actually like my mom was in the choir, and so they were also a part of the choir, and we just I've grown up with them in my life my entire life, literally. And they are some of the women that that definitely impacted my life. They were people who, I could go to for whatever. If I ever needed anything, I could call upon
Mm,
them. They were always very kind, always very gracious. They just, never judgmental. And even seeing them, grow up in different circumstances, I've watched them navigate different things in life, and just seeing the way, like we said before, even if it's hard, them still like, pushing through it
yeah.
and just making it to the other side. Like they were really people who, like, even to this day, like if there's something going on, they're going to be there. Like if it's my wedding during the pandemic, they were all there, like having babies, dedicating babies, they're going to be there the same way they were there during those stages in my life, and I am, I'm forever grateful for them because, they just, I guess as I've gotten older, I haven't realized like how much of an influence they were. But I've
Mm,
seen them, be mothers and now grandmothers, and they just really, they've really gone through a lot. And, it makes me think, if they can do all these things and be all these things for their kids and still give them the best and be these things for their husbands and still, live
yeah. Still
these
look.
great
Mm-hmm.
lives, like I can do that too.
Yeah.
What is it that if there's nothing that I can't do, based upon seeing them. And yeah, they have really, my mom calls them the girlfriends, but yes, they have really, they even let me go on a trip with them one time, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm finally like in the
Right. I'm
circle.
part of the group. Like I'm at the big kids table.
But yes, but they have definitely had like a huge impact on my life. And and now, even with my kids now, they love them just the same. So it's just something
Yeah.
that is just overflowing onto them, and I'm definitely grateful for that.
That's beautiful. I love that you just like, I don't know, like you gain like a whole like cohort or group of aunties. Like that's so dope.
Yes.
Um so speaking of, we talked about all the things, momming, wifing, breastfeeding, your journey, as a cancer survivor. Like if you, had this vision and you close your eyes, like what does your ultimate self look like? Like Amber is just, she's living that self. Like what does that look like?
Um, Definitely in Atlanta, with my people. But also just being able to serve the people that I feel like, God has placed me on this earth to serve. I feel like that is something that has always been a part of me. Like as a teacher, I served elementary students, and now I just feel like part of my purpose is to help other moms, not only just in breastfeeding, but just understanding life after having kids. And so being able to do that full time in different capacities, whether it's, speaking with moms or giving breastfeeding education, being on different panels, things like that. I feel like is where I will feel like I'm finally thriving, and being my best self. Still having the flexibility to be there for my children. Because now that I've experienced this, I don't think I can ever give it up. It's going to always have to be something that, there is this open that if I need to be somewhere or if I want to chaperone or, whatever it is that that flexibility is there.
Yeah.
Just also, being, I just want to live a little quiet life, Sometimes, the world, yes, the world, social media, all of that can be very loud. And it can be very overwhelming. And, sometimes I just want to shut everything down and, not worry about it all. But just being at peace with that. And, if that is something that I decided to do, that, it would be okay. And whatever is left, it'll be there when I get back to it. So
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Like, having some part of the ultimate self to be able to walk away from things that, it's just like, hey, like, do I have to kind of pay attention to this every day, or do, just to be able to walk away from something? Sometimes I feel like that about the business. Like, I don't want to be CEO today. Can I just be a part of the team? Right. Can I not run the business? Like, tell me when y'all need me. Like, I don't want to have to be here every day. And I totally like understand and like empathize just, with the quiet part of it, in itself.
Yes.
And I love what you said about, how at some point in your life you came to the realization that I am supposed to help people, like maybe at one point it was elementary students. Now it's mothers. It's my whole household. It's, whoever's listening to this podcast. And I have up until recently, and I would say like within the last year, I've always known like my natural gift that God gave me to use was like my voice, and whether that is in writing, whether that is in speaking, whatever, like that has been what he's given me to use. But it wasn't up until recently where I realized that kind of like my ultimate, purpose is tied up into creating platforms that use that voice. So to some, like Digital 319 looks like a marketing agency or a creative strategy agency. And in my head, like that was my front door to all the things that God wanted me to do. A lot of times you place your career in that way. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to be this and da 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 da. And it wasn't until like within the last year or two, the team growing and things expanding, where I started to realize like this is actually the back door, to everything else, every other platform that he wants me to make, every other platform he wants me to be connected to out in the world that may already exist, to use my voice and to use my writing or whatever. Like, this is just kind of like the foundation. It wasn't like the end all be all. And I feel like when you get to that part, you just be like, ooh. Yeah. Like, bro, what you got going on? Like, can you like give me a little inside scoop? So that's definitely where I've been operating from recently, knowing that, hey, no matter what I do, if it's a new platform, new space, new whatever, like I was called to be in that place to use my voice, however that comes to life. If it looks like making reels about motherhood stuff, if it looks like, speaking to old high school students, like that was the intention. But I love hearing you just speak about like the flexibility of helping people. I think a lot of times, especially as moms and especially as a stay-at-home mom, the world like to like box you. Like, this is your box, play in this box. Don't open the box. Don't jump out the box. Don't think about no other boxes, because this is the box you deserve or you can be in.
Yeah.
But when we start to see like how our natural gifts just spread across so many different spaces, we move different and we have different confidence,
Absolutely.
So Last question. If you could leave advice for a woman at the cooler, what would you tell them?
Ooh. Trust your gut.
Mm.
Go with your gut feeling. There have been many times, I won't say many, but there have been times where, as a woman, I have not trusted that gut, or a second guessed myself. And sometimes your gut feeling is not just you. It is a supernatural being, if you want to call it the Holy Spirit, if that is your thing, but it is really something deep inside of you that is telling you whatever it is that it is telling you.
Yeah.
It is telling you that for a reason. And even, even as you go through life, I know it gets hard to, you hear things and you're like, no, not me. Like, I don't, that's not, I'm not comfortable with that, or that's not where I saw this going, or if it's a relationship, no, not him, like, whatever. Right. But there's obviously a reason for that feeling. And the more you practice trusting your gut, the more you will become more comfortable with that and start to lean into trusting the decisions that you make for yourself, that you make for your family, that you make for your future. And that's just something that I wish I would have done or even really knew about a whole lot earlier.
Yeah.
Don't regret anything, but I would have definitely made some different decisions regarding maybe even some different career paths earlier on had I trusted my gut. And maybe have said, okay, this doesn't look clearly like what I thought it was going to look like, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Like, that is definitely something that I would hope that more women would do.
Trust your gut. I feel like we don't hear that enough, like, anymore. Like, we don't hear those 3 words enough. And it, like, reminds me of that quote that's like, sometimes everything you need is, like, right there in front of you, or, like, everything inside of you,
Yes.
But no, that's solid. Trust your gut. Like, every time, like, sometimes you put that up against the thoughts or the sources or the resources that you thought, was helping you arrive at the decision. And it's just like, man, and you're looking at it in hindsight. So then it's like, bro, like, I knew the right answer all along.
All along.
But I absolutely feel that for sure. Yeah. So Amber, thank you so much for being on here today. Thank you, most importantly, for sharing your story. Tell the people where they can find you, follow Lotus Bloom.
So on Instagram, I am at Lotus Bloom Lactation, or at the Amber Janae. That is JENAE. Yeah, and that's where you can find me. I don't post too much.
I love that. Yes, I'm already, like, I've been had you pinned and saved and all the things, but I'm just, like I said, God willing, if we ever have a second kid, I'm gonna be on Lotus Bloom hotline, because I do think, like, after Bray, I was just like, I don't think I'm gonna try this again. But I do think I want to, once you get pregnant again, like, all your thoughts and hormones just going whole different ways than what you thought you was going to do. Absolutely. But yes, sis, thank you so much for being on today. I'm so excited that you got to join me at the cooler. And for everybody listening, thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all on the next episode.